It's Kendo Nagasaki versus Clive Myers.
Clive Myers.
A disco ladder match. The only disco
ladder match ever to have taken place.
This match, it really has to be seen to be believed.
It does. It's something else.
So much worse than the names involved and the actual name of the match itself would have you believe from the title. It takes place on the 3rd of January 1987. This went out on ITV. It had been recorded on the 27th of December 1986, which was a much more Christmassy time of year. Still after Christmas.
Yeah, still not quite Christmas.
Just a little bit of historical setting for this. All Star Wrestling were the secondary promotion in Britain. What had happened is ITV had decided to switch things up a bit. And what they decided to do with their slot of wrestling every week on a Saturday was they were going to split it between Joint, they were going to split it between All Star, and they were going to split it between a new company who'd never been on British television before. They were called the WWF.
Oh.
Welcome to a first in British television. From the World Wrestling Federation, we're offering fans of the British Isles a transatlantic treat. Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid. And they weigh in at a collective weight of 468 pounds. I'll get this for you. Here we go. Divided by 14 or 33 and a half stones. I think that's a nice touch for our fans in the British Isles.
And what had happened really is All Star Wrestling had realised that Joint was very old-fashioned. It was still presenting things in the late 80s as it had in the early sort of 60s. It really hadn't changed. And they'd looked at the WWF, and Brian Dixon, the owner, had said, that's the future. We need razzmatazz. And this was the very first All-Star Wrestling appearance on ITV.
Right.
This is their first show, and this is the main event. And they have decided that they are going to not just show that they can match those Americans step for step, but they can do it, they can outclass them, and they can get change back from a pound. Right? And they do that. We have a step ladder.
Yeah.
Not a ladder.
Not a ladder.
We in Britain don't have the ladders with the two sides of slats.
Because, we've got one side of slats.
One side.
And the other side, we don't have them.
That's a step ladder.
That's a step ladder.
And the MC in this makes it very clear this ladder match will be taken care of with a step ladder. It diminishes it slightly, doesn't it? But,
it does, and it makes it difficult to have battles from either side of the ladder because we don't have them.
Well, that makes it difficult, but let's make it clear the wrestlers, apart from on one occasion, have no interest in using the ladder whatsoever.
No, true.
Kendo Nagasaki is making a triumphant return to British wrestling. So back in the 70s, he left Joint because he was fed up of seeing Big Daddy on the top of the cards and was aware that he wasn't going to be allowed to take that position. And around about 1978, he decided to go into semi-retirement. He did that to look after his businesses and also manage a rock band who were called the Cuddly Toys.
Nice.
He gets a bit of a shock in 1979 when Joint introduced a new wrestler who was called Kendo Nagasaki 2.
They must have spent months coming up with that one.
Kendo complains, possibly launched a bit of legal action.
Because you think if one man out of all of British wrestling probably would have protected his own trademarks, Kendo Nagasaki, he's got a bit of money.
Yeah, but the thing about Kendo is easily replicated because you just need a mask and a samurai costume.
Yeah, and you can't trademark those.
Now, obviously, people would be going, this guy isn't as good as our Kendo, but you can just go, well, do you know what? He's a back problem. So you can fool the crowd. This is wrestling. That's what people do. That's what the business is about. Joint Promotions do change the name of Kendo Nagasaki 2 to King Kendo. And Kendo would come out of retirement in 1981 for a handful of matches.
To grab his birthright back.
Exactly,
his
against King Kendo.
Back.
They wanted that to be much bigger, but Kendo pretty much, I think, on doctor's orders sort of went, oh, do you know what? I'm giving it up now. And in 1986, as All-Star Wrestling begin to get this TV deal, Kendo decides he is going to return, and he returns as their big headliner. And he is such an important part of the success of All-Star Wrestling because Kendo remained one of the huge names of British wrestling. And by having him on board, you could only see Kendo by going to an All-Star show. And that was a very, very big thing. The other person they had was Rollerball Rocco. So you're pretty much guaranteed. You go to an All-Star Wrestling show, you're going to see some pretty phenomenal action.
Yeah. Hello, Pete from Wrestle Me.
Hi, it's Mark from Wrestle Me here, and Wrestle Me You.
Wrestle Me You, Wrestle Me You, Wrestle Me Me. We're here to talk about something that's going on the Patreon. We are doing WrestleMemas. We do this every year. We give you 12 great shows in December, because it's Christmas, isn't it?
It's Christmas. What could be more Christmas?
What could be more
number
Christmassy?
12?
We basically find the stupidest, silliest matches in the history of wrestling, and we basically talk about them.
I mean, what more could you...
Patreon.com/WrestleMe. Join us!
Happy WrestleMemas! This show that was on the first televised All-Star Wrestling show, it also had the debut of Flying Fuji Yamada,
Right,
the future Jushin Liger, and Mark Rocco versus Chick Cullen. It's on YouTube, that match, and that is phenomenal. Rocco, at some point, with All-Star Wrestling, he was like, now I've left joint, I can really let my hair down. And I can really wrestle the style that I want to wrestle, which is... violent.
Violent.
And, I mean, Rocco in All-Star Wrestling, we think we've seen intensity when we've seen him in Joint. No. Rocco was holding back. Rocco is like, this is for the kiddies. Right? This is for kiddies, right? Now, you're going to see real Rocco. Real Rocco is going to come here. And real Rocco's he's going to fuck you up. He's going to fuck you up. And he is phenomenal. Could have talked about either of those matches. Would have been great. But no, here we are. Now, you would say, what has Kendo Nagasaki and Ironfist Clive Myers, what interest do they have in a gold record?
Yeah.
Why have we got this gold record hanging above the ring with the ladder?
Yeah, I mean, and also it's kind of like, it's without a sleeve.
Yeah.
It's hung up by tinsel. It's getting scratched.
In the 80s and 90s, going to someone's house and if they had a gold disc on their wall, you would be like, my God, they are like the king of the industry. They must know Led Zeppelin. I think Kendo Nagasaki was involved in the decision to do this match. The reason for that is the ladder match at this time is still not famous like it is now. We think of it as being, it's another speciality match, like your steel cage match or anything. This time, no one had really heard of a ladder match. Right. It had been invented in Stampede in 1972 over in Canada when two guys called Torquemada and Dan Crawford had the first ladder match. 1972, when this ladder match happens, who's touring Stampede Wrestling?
Oh, is it Kendo?
One Kendo Nagasaki.
Right.
He's gone over for a little Canadian sojourn. Kendo made quite an impression in Stampede. They did give him the North American title back in the early 70s. In the early 80s, they brought in a Japanese wrestler. His name was Kazuo Sakurada, and he was given the name in Stampede, Kendo Nagasaki. So a little bit of a memory of Kendo being such a big star. They gave it to a real Japanese guy.
Constantly getting ripped off.
Isn't he?
This poor lad.
Yeah. That Kendo Nagasaki would go on to be one of the early trainers of Bret Hart. Again, something that Kendo can sort of go, even the rip-offs. Even rip-offs were training the best in the world. He's actually from Doncaster. I didn't quite get the voice.
I'm 85.
I'm 81, you know.
81, you know.
He did say. He brought the actual ladder match back to the UK in the 70s. He took part in a number of them. But this is one of the only ones that we ever saw televised, and sort of certainly one of the ones to survive.
A lovely little sort of
this day.
tableau of like Kendo Nagasaki in a big DIY shop. Going, what's
magic.
your biggest ladder?
Magic. Hey, I saw this thing where I'm in Canada, and they're all climbing up step ladder. You go, step ladder or ladder? No, step ladder. Step ladder.
Definitely step ladder.
Definitely step ladder. Out he comes with his manager, Gorgeous George Gillette. Gorgeous George had been his manager since 1971. George would die in January 89 of complications from AIDS. He was an out gay man. He was a brilliant valet. He added a strange sort of effeminacy to what Kendo was doing, and that was a very unusual and unsettling thing for a lot of people who were watching Kendo in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
And that is a good thing. Always have people on the back foot, not quite sure what they're seeing and what's going on. Kendo does write about him. He just loved George. And George, he talks about his real bravery. And his bravery, of course, was to be an effeminate gay man in 1970s Britain inside a traditionally working class sport. And yes, he was portraying a bad guy, but he was a bold man who never hid. And Kendo just, has nothing but respect for Gorgeous George.
Yeah.
Commence wrestling.
Commence wrestling for the first part of this very exciting new experience. I've never seen it before any more than you have.
It's a new experience, says Kent Walton. It's a unique experience. They've got a golden ladder. They've sprayed it gold. They have wrapped gold tinsel around it, and you have to get up to pull down the golden disc, which is hanging on some gold tinsel from the ceiling. Right now, the disco part of the performance. Says Kent.
nobody less likely to know what is, what isn't, and what's going to happen with disco than Ken Walton.
You have to remember, fair play to them, all discos start with 5 to 8 minutes of classical music, right?
Proper fucking War of the Worlds classical bombast.
Yes.
But I don't know what is more... I don't know what's more suitable. I don't think either's... Disco's never suitable in the wet wrestling ring.
And the lights go off, and then the lights start flashing, and they've got a big sort of disco spaceship rig that they're obviously very...
Very pleased
That
with.
would have cost £100,000.
Yeah.
And it begins, the lights, I think, lower, and they're all flashing and going, and... And you've got a tiny ring with total darkness around. Every time they cut to the ring, there's a light shining directly into the camera. So you can only see half of it. You can't hear anything because of the music. It's so hard to actually watch this match. You can't follow what's going on.
Yeah.
Because it's just like... You know, in there's a Michael Caine film, like the Ipcress File, where they brainwash him. There's loads of flashing lights and sort of like shadows going over, and it's like that. It's really like sort of like MK Ultra mind control, watching the whole thing. The best thing about it is it makes no difference to the wrestlers.
No.
They just carry on
with it,
doing what they're doing. The fact,
All American rules, Mark.
All American rules.
It's all American rules.
We've got to make that clear. No rounds in this.
No
we want
rounds
this to
in
be
this.
ruined by rounds. The crowd are really into it. And every time the music dips, the crowd are really going, you know, fine, suck him in the nose, Errol, you know.
Well,
Ladies and gentlemen, you think because Kendo has been away for a while that you stand any chance at all?
Well, Kendo really is making it clear that he does not care for the disco music. I imagine he likes the Strauss. I imagine he likes the classical music, but I don't think he likes any of the disco.
It's worth saying as well, let's remember when...
Kendo don't disco.
It's worth saying, this isn't in 1974.
No.
This is taking place in 1986, right? No one is talking about disco in 86.
Nope.
No one. They're talking about high-energy pop.
Yeah.
Pop is king. I had a look at what the top songs of 1986 were, and really annoyingly, the best-selling single was...
A disco song.
It sort
Earth, Wind
of
and
is.
Fire.
It's Don't Leave Me This Way by the Communards, which does have...
It's very electro, though, isn't it?
It's still got disco DNA.
It has got disco DNA.
It's got disco DNA. Number 2 was Every Loser Wins by Nick Berry.
Thank you.
The EastEnders
Was that
actor.
86?
86,
That feels... We sort of lost Nick Berry. It was a big Paul Calf cultural touchstone, I seem to recall. He was
Yeah.
always giving Nick Berry a boating. And I was
That's
like, we
right.
need to bring back Nick Berry boating. I enjoyed those times.
And number 3 was Boris Gardner's I Want to Wake Up With You, which was a sort of very lilting pop reggae.
Right,
by
okay.
Boris Gardner.
Nice.
So, again, 87, this really works because it's all people you've heard of, like Prince and Madonna. But looking at the end of 86, I was like, that's my point a bit fucked.
What's next after punk?
Yes. The Nutcracker Suite is playing as Kendo. They make no... This is like two entirely separate things. The wrestlers don't work with the music, and they don't sort of go, we'll fit this into what we're doing. And the music has no relation to the wrestlers. It's just two really different things that are going on at the same time.
There's a big mum that appears at one point as well.
Yes, and they have to take her back. She's got
Big old mum.
overexcited.
Big old mum got excited.
Yeah.
She's on the loose.
There's a bit where they cut and they're like, this is, and you get the man's hand behind the console showing you the faders and stuff.
They're obsessed with this fucking fader, aren't they? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, within 2 minutes, it's like it's taking place inside a fruit machine. It's just absolutely flashing lights, and it's hard to work out what's going on. Just absolutely crazy. There is one good ladder bump, and that is from Clive Miles.
Oh, my God.
I say bump.
Is that a ladder bump, or is it?
Kendo just fucking whips that ladder away.
He just snatches the golden ladder as if that's the prize.
Yes.
And Myers spills out with no thought for a landing. No hope to consider thinking about where he might want to land.
No.
Just like a sack of shit.
He just plummets. That is the only proper bump in the whole of this show. And the moment that happens, Kendo then just grabs the ladder, up he goes, and he gets the disc and he pulls it, and he sort of just, the act of pulling is too much for Ken, and he just goes off. And there's a lovely bit where the tinsel sort of snakes through like a sort of sparkler, like you do it, which sort of suggests he's falling much too fast. It's just a lovely moment. What a bad match. No psychology, but the psychology totally ruined anyway by just
Disco,
having
the music.
What might have been Hazel Dean over the top. I just don't know.
You'd think that Disco Inferno would have heard about this and got involved. But, I think actually Edge and Christian had a TV show, and I think they might have mentioned this one.
They did. I noticed from the YouTube comments.
Yes, I did as well.
A lot of people were like, Edge and Christian brought me here.
Yeah.
But then I looked and there was like 611 views. I was like,
that seems low
that
for
seems
Edge and
low for Edge and Christian doing it.
Because sometimes we tell people to do stuff and they seem to do it.
Yeah. I was a little bit like, that seems a pathetic outcome. The guy who uploaded that must have been like, I'm going to be minted.
I'm going to be minted, mate.
Got that fucking Edge and that shitty fucking Christian giving it all that about my illegally uploaded disco ladder match. And you look back at it and he would have gone fucking bust.
Yeah.
Fucking bust. I mean, a year later, Greg Dyke would axe wrestling off of ITV, and I'm not sure sort of this match would have helped to change his mind.
I mean, he probably didn't catch much wrestling during
I don't
the
think
year.
he watched any of it.
But I think during Christmas, the family, he may have been embarrassed by his extended family.
Yeah.
Who sort of went, Gregory, would you care to put on your television station?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hang on, let me check the time, Mum. Oh, no, it's do you know what, Mum? It's 12:30. I ain't going to do that. Why don't you bob it on? Let's see what High TV is doing. I still hear people sort of say, oh, yes, well, we weren't really an ITV household.
Yeah.
What, you
weird
fucking,
flex, isn't
what?
it? Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
What, you didn't have a button of 3?
Yeah.
And you were so frightened of your mum and dad, you weren't like, I'll watch that.
What's up
That's
with clearly
people?
better.
My mum once, in a thing that she's never really lived down, when we had video shops that were open for the first time, we had had some friends over. I was probably about 5, 6, and we just got a video, really expensive. We only had 2 videos at home. They were Jaws and Ring of Bright Water, the one about otters. And my mum got a video out from the store, getting the first cartoon she saw, and she came back in, and it was Fritz the cat. And we got through. But now, I do remember, even like now, watching it at the age of 5 and just going, I can't make head or tail of any of this.
Everyone's talking jive.
Yeah, she came back in and she said that it was at the moment where there was a big cat swinging 2 smaller cats off its boobs, moving back and forth, and a load of kids just sitting there going, I want to go home.
It's not even the sexy stuff, it's the weird racial allegories that... It's Crumb, wasn't it? It's fucking dirty old Crumb.
A bad call there.
Bad call.
A bad call.
Not all cartoons are for kids.
My mum did
Meet
not...
the Feebles.
She did not understand the rating system. The 18 thing, she would go, well, I'm 18, so I can get it out.
Yeah.
Just didn't click. But there we are. Love you, Mum. The old staff from here...
I like your big long tits. Swing little babies.
My mum's 82. Just have some fucking respect. It's Christmas, you fucking animal. just had a hip done. It's not been well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was quite a while ago. It's just comic effect. Oh,
God.
Well, look, I mean, All Star, they do go on to have a good time. The clap, as if it resets, just erases. It's my equivalent of that thing they use in Men in Black. You know, we've all forgotten. Move on. Okay.